Greetings and welcome. Hey, y'all. Hey, my name is Dr. Cherry Estelhomme, and I am here to walk you through one of the most unique crisis models that we have today, which is psychological first aid, otherwise known as PFA. All right, you ready? Let's get started. Psychological first aid is an 8-task, evidence-informed approach that is built upon the concept of human resilience. It was initially created shortly after September 11th because it wanted to assist people with making it through natural disasters. The goal in PFA, when it was introduced, was to go with the idea to do no harm. They wanted to look at this because individuals who were affected by disaster and those centering on needing this immediate attention to both their physical and emotional needs. And so the goal was to do no harm and to focus on these needs. And so when you look at how this went on and how this happened, we have to take a step back and actually look at the definition of PFA. Debouc et al. 2014 defines psychological first aid as an intervention given to people in the direct aftermath of a crisis that is aimed at listening, comforting, connection, practical help, and support of those affected individuals. Again, the initial goal was to help those dealing with a crisis directly after the aftermath of a natural crisis like September 11th, a hurricane, something like that. And the goal was aimed at listening, comforting, connection, practical help, that's really key, and support of those individuals. So when taking a look at PFA, I want you to look at it as psychological first aid. It can be thought of as a fundamental aspect of applied crisis intervention and disaster mental health. PFA can help almost anyone. The intended population is anyone who's been exposed to traumatic or emergency incidences. It can help children, adolescents, adults, elders, families, and even communities who's been exposed to traumatic or emergency incidences, including responders and support service personnel. And so the goal with PFA was to reduce stress symptoms and to assist in healthy recovery. So Schultz and Forbes 2014 suggested that PFA was first introduced in the era after September 11th and is now primarily used as an intervention technique in the early moments after a natural disaster or a similar individual crisis. Again, it's an evidence-informed approach that is built on the concept of human resilience. So what are some of the goals of PFA? So PFA aims to reduce stress symptoms and to assist in healthy recovery following a traumatic event, a natural disaster, a public health emergency, or even a personal crisis. So again, you can use this crisis model for just about anything, as long as you can justify the steps and explain how you use this with your client. It's an important tool for assessment, and it can serve as the essential platform upon which survivors can be referred to in case they need a higher level of care for more advanced individual and group crisis disaster mental health intervention, such as small group debriefing and critical incident stress debriefing. So it can not only be used for right immediately following a crisis, but it can also be used again as a tool to see if maybe this client is going to need longer, more intense mental health care therapy. And so Debouc et al., and again, et al. Means and others, Debouc et al. Shows the 5 basic principles that PFA aimed to address. And those 5 basic principles are safety, calmness, connectedness, self and community efficacy, and instilling hope. Again, those are safety, calmness, connectedness, self and community efficacy, and instilling hope. You then have 8 PFA tasks, also known as 8 core actions. And so the PFA 8 core actions start with contact and engagement, actually contacting your client and making sure that you are connecting with them and you are making sure that all of their needs are met, that you are building a rapport and you are communicating well with your client. So contact and engagement. Introducing yourself, letting them know your role in this process, making sure they have your card, because if they're in the middle, if a crisis just happened, they may not remember it so well. The second core action, or the second task, is safety and comfort. Let's look at some of the basic things. Do they have water? Do they have a blanket? Let's look at supplying their basic needs. The third core action is stabilization. Let's reduce psychological stressors. Let's make sure that they're in a place where they're not immediately, constantly being triggered by what just happened. They're not immediately in the throes of what is going on. So just kind of stabilizing them, getting them to a place of safety, emotional and physical safety. And so you can at least get them in a place of, reduce stress and kind of start working through and building this rapport. The fourth one is information gathering. This is kind of where you're really showing yourself as this calming and comforting presence. You are gathering information, their information, emergency contact. You can also go ahead and ask what happened. And oftentimes what you'll discover is when someone has immediately endured a crisis, they want to tell you what happened. They want to tell you what they were doing right before that. I was just calling my daughter. I had just ran to the bathroom. I had just made a copy. You can take that moment as information gathering and just to kind of hear, what they have to say. Or they can say, something like, I wasn't going to come to work today, or, whatever it was, or, I was cooking and, I left the stove on because I just went to go check my, baby's bath water. Whatever it is, you want to do some information gathering, but you really just want to be a comforting and a calming support service right there. You want to be present. You want to be a voice of reason, and you want to be a good listener. Even if it's their fault, this is not the time to point blame. You just want to be a positive presence, okay, while you're gathering this information. The fifth one is practical assistance. How can I support you right now? Practical assistance. Can I take your dog off your hands? And can I just kind of take your dogs over to let your dog use the bathroom? Because right now they're just jumping and yelping and they're kind of afraid. Practical assistance. Can I help you have a seat? Do I have a folding chair in my trunk? Can I get you a chair to have a seat? I've already given you, water and the safety and comfort, but the practical assistance is, can I get you something to eat? Like, what can I do? What can we do? And, even maybe take the client, can we go for a walk? Can we just kind of leave away from the situation? Just being a practical assistance. Ask them my favorite question. How can I support you right now? Most of the times they won't know. Is there someone I can call? Number 6 is connection with social supports. I need to find out, what they need so I can connect them with the accurate support. Do they need food? Do they need the Red Cross? Do they need to speak with someone about getting a hotel? What is the connection? What social supports can I, put them in touch with? Can I call your church for you? Can I connect you? If you don't belong to church, can I connect you with the church? If you choose, if you believe in that. Connecting with accurate social supports. One of the greatest tools that each therapist can have is the ability to network. And you want to have this Rolodex of services. If you find someone who possibly does wigs for cancer patients, that could be a social support that you can have available, because you might meet a client who says, all my wigs burned in a fire. And you're like, okay, I know someone who actually makes wigs, and each week she donates one. So let me connect you with her. Number 7 is educate and empower. You want to provide information. You want to educate them. You want to empower them by kind of letting them know that, you are okay. You want to empower them and educate them that everything they are dealing with, that's normal. You want to empower them not to be afraid because, they're feeling out of sorts or lost. You want to educate them that feeling frazzled right now is normal. You just experienced something horrific, right? So you really want to empower them that no, you're not going out of your mind because you can't remember your daughter's phone number. You want to empower them. You want to provide information on coping. You want to educate them on how to take a deep breath, how to inhale and exhale. You want to empower them to be able to do that 10 times, empower them to pray. If they say, I believe in God, I just want to pray, educate them, be like, hey, it's okay. If that's your coping skill right now, if you, believe in the power of prayer, I personally do. Not everyone does, but if you believe in the power of prayer and you just want to call on Jesus, the last thing you want to do is tell them, shh, we don't want to do that right now. No, if you want to call on Jesus, call on Jesus. Even still, a lot of people might take this the wrong way, but if someone says, why would God do this to me? You don't want to just jump in, well, God didn't do this to you. Or, you want to educate them on, hey, being angry and frustrated is a normal reaction. I get that. I understand that. You never want to water down what they're saying, but you still want to educate and empower them. And, it says, it sounds like you are really, really frustrated. You may ask them, have you experienced anything like this in the past, and empower them if they have to use some of those tools that they used in the past to help deal with today. But whatever it is, you don't want to downplay what they're saying. This is all my fault. I can't believe it. Instead of saying, no, this ain't your fault, you might want to say, this can feel like you have a lot on your shoulders. This can feel like you are carrying the burden for everything. I get that. I get how overwhelming that must feel. You might want to ask them, do you want to share more about that with me? Can you tell me more about that? Have you felt this way in the past? Have you experienced this? Have you, dealt with something like this in the past? It's okay to educate and empower. And then finally, number 8, you want to assess for referrals. You want to discover or find out if you need to connect them with somebody. So it's different from number 6. 6 is connection with social supports, the immediate social support, Red Cross, things like that. Assess for referrals, meaning, is this person going to need grief counseling? Do I need to refer them to a long-term grief therapist? Is this person going to need to link or connect with housing? Do I need to make that connection more for long-term services? So that's the difference between 6 and 8, the assess for referrals and the connection with social supports. So once you look at each of the 8 core actions of PFA, again, I want you to keep in mind that they're kind of hand in hand. They kind of flow together. You might go back and forth between the two. So they're definitely not the kind of core actions that you would need to do consecutively per se. Some of these may overlap. They may go, over time and time. You may have to go back and do something else, and then come back to something else. But just make sure that you are walking your client through each of these 8 core actions. And so one more thing I want you to be aware of is some considerations about PFA. PFA is not psychotherapy, nor is it a substitute for therapy. Keep in mind, just think of it as first aid, as actual first aid. First aid is not the same as surgery in a medical center. First aid is just to stop the bleeding. How can I stop the bleeding, the emotional hemorrhaging right now? It's considered culturally evasive sometimes. Not all people from all cultures will be able to accept this kind of service because it may feel very invasive. You are right there and you are trying to talk to them about some very traumatic things, and maybe they're not ready to open up on the spot culturally. Be okay with that. Not everyone is going to receive you in the same way. That doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. You have to give people the time and space to be who they are authentically. Whenever you are dealing with PFA, I want you to assume that you're dealing with normal people who are having normal reactions to abnormal events. Okay, keep that in mind. Assume you are dealing with normal people who are having normal reactions to abnormal events. So, like I said, because PFA is not therapy, this is not the kind of thing that you're walking them through a bipolar episode or something like that. You're immediately just dealing with the emotional trauma directly after a crisis. You just want to stop the emotional hemorrhaging. So, but what is it? PFA is a simple and practical tool that you can use to reduce stress levels. Again, we are stopping the emotional hemorrhaging. And you want to understand that your stress reactions and utilizing PFA principles, you can enhance resilience. And that is the goal. You really want to make sure or help this client become self-reliant, self-resilience for themselves, for the community, and even for yourself. You actually may be dealing with something. And if you've experienced this in the past, you may have to put that aside. The goal is we want to reduce the hemorrhaging and get you back to normal functioning. All right. I really, really hope that this brief introduction of PFA was helpful. If you have any questions about PFA, please do not hesitate to comment below and let me know your questions, and I'll make a point to take a moment to answer it. I hope you found this helpful. I'm Dr. Cherry Estelhomme. Thank you for listening. Have an amazing day. Bye.